I will talk on robots, of course, but I will try to depict the story of this new world, which is imagined here in Prague. I will comment this thing in certain words, and I will say also on the word changed by this word of robots, because our time now is a little bit different from the times of 1920s, when the word was introduced in the vocabulary of into the international vocabulary from Czech language. So, my title, once again, Robot, the story of the word in the world. I was introduced that I'm from Slovakia. It's in a certain sense true, but I'm now working at the Institute of Computer Science of the Silesian University, what is in Czech Republic, in Opava, near Ostrava, in the Czech Republic. So, let me to start with a question of Jean Baudrillard from 1988, which was formulated in Austria, in Linz, and started in this way: am I a man or am I a machine? Was a question, but it was also some poetical question, because Baudrillard gives also the answer to his question, and the answer was that one: virtually and physically we are approaching machines in 1890. What stays behind this answer to this simple, maybe provoking question? So I divide my contents into these parts, and I will start with the time of antiquity, because I think that this style of bridging the present days with the past is very good, and very good is also very interesting is also the starting with the dealing with these words in the antiquity. So let me start with that, and let me start with the word golem. This text here is, of course, for me absolutely ununderstandable, and it is also from some reasons of giving some illustrations to that what is written down. And written down are two citations from the Old Testament, from the Bible, from the Genesis. The God said, "Let us make a man in our image." It is an important sentence in this old resource, and I think that the similarly important strokes are also this one: the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So it was two important things here. The man is formed from the dust of ground, and he is made in God's our image. It's two important things from our point of view, at least. If we are going into history in the other place, then we can study Aristotle and his politics, and in the second book of politics, in chapter 4, pages also here, we can read the next strokes. For if every instrument could accomplish its own work, obeying or anticipating the will of others, chief workmen would not want servants nor master slaves. It is a very important part, because in certain sense it depicts the situation when robot will exist sometime, and this sometime is in fact our times. Homer in the Iliad wrote also very interesting strokes. Again, with yellow color is emphasized the most important part from what I use this citation. There were golden handmaids also who worked for him and were like real young women with sense and reason, and etc. So again, imagined new things, new technical achievements, but serving the God, not anybody. And this is an important point, that to create something human-like needs in all situations the cooperation of the God. It was in the Old Testament, and here it appears once again. And maybe in many other places it appears this use of godness for creation of human-like beings. Okay, this was antiquity, and now we start to deal with the Middle Age. And in the Middle Ages, the artificial human-like beings was reflected very oftenly by the notion of the so-called golem. Here is some kind of definition or something like that of the golem. It is perhaps the best known of the Jewish legends. It is an automaton, in fact, typically humanoid and typically male, created as the result of an intense, systematic, mystical meditation. The word golem means or implies something unformed and imperfect, or a body without the soul. Of course, in the Judaistic philosophy, there are different levels of the soul, and I will not deal now with discussing what kind of soul is meant by golems. It is the simplest one. The word golem appears once in the Bible, in the Psalms. It is indicated here, where in the Psalm 139, in the verse 15-16. So it is not very usual word in the Bible. The creation of golem is attributed to Rabbi Abba ben Rog Hama, Rabbi Rava, and it appears once in the Babylonian Talmud in the 4th century of our age, and it's also important things for us. And maybe the most important things for us is the next stroke, next sentence here. The most famous golem is the one created by Rabbi Yehuda Levi ben Bezalel of Prague, known as the Rabbi Maharal. So the golem legend is very closely related to Prague, and if you are interested, you may visit some places where some ruins of golem is up to now. And where it is in the so-called Old New Synagogue of Prague. Here is a picture, and okay. And in the picture you can recognize the building, which is standing up to now. It is a touristic attraction of Prague. Maybe a journalist in the past, I don't remember his name,
Egon Erwin Kisch. Egon Erwin Kisch.
Egon Erwin Kisch, thank you very much, visited the building, and he visited also this part of the building, and he doesn't recognize nothing which was similar to a golem, but maybe golem is somewhere in it. How golems look like. These three pictures depicting a golem in the fantasy of artists. This is maybe the most well-known. It's very, very inspired by the golem in one of the Czech movie. How to translate it in the Pekařův císařův pekař, the pekař, who makes the bread. What is said this specialist making bread?
Baker.
Baker, the baker of the
Emperor's baker.
Emperors and emperors of the baker.
Baker's temper.
The title of the movie, and in this movie appears golem, and the golem from the movie is very, very similar to this one. This one is a small sculpture sold as a souvenir in Prague. This is another form of golem, and it's from one movie. I will mention this movie in a little bit more details, so I will not comment the picture here. And this is a golem from one book appearing somewhere in the world, and containing short stories where golem is also mentioned. This is a picture you have it in the previous slide. This is of course a golem, and the picture is from the movie produced by a Union movie company in Berlin in 1920. It's a very important date, this is 1920, we will see why. In 1920, released was in 1921, and director was Paul Wegner and Karl Bös. And if I remember well, then Paul Wegner is an actor here in the mask of the golem. And cameraman of the movie was Karl Freud. So, we have a golem, it's an idea of a man-made man. Genesis describes Adam's creation, not the golem's creation, Adam's creation in two levels. And we have saw these levels in one of the previous slides. The first level is at the level of the used technology and material. Adam formed from the clay and vivified, drawing soul in his breath. It is a very commonly known part of the Old Testament, of the Genesis. And the second view of the Adam is also from the Genesis, and this view is formulated at the level of human abilities. Adam created on the Creator's own image. If on the base of Creator's own image, then it means, at least some behind of the scene, that the man, because he is created on the image of the God, have also the possibility which the God have. So it is a little recursion in the Bible, that if Adam is similar to the God, then has the same abilities as the God have. The social need of the golem was existing and up to now exists. It was in the past the desire to have human-like beings for helping human beings in different difficult situations. And if you remember some short stories concerning golem, you may recognize that golem oftenly appeared in this form in these short stories. But it is also a second reason, a fear, coming from realizing different dangers connected with autonomous human-like beings. So, not only desire, but together with this desire, also a fear. What will happen if we will successful in creating golems? It is not something dangerous, not something very complicated for us. Here is the title, a little bit maybe surprising, Golem, a proto-constructivistic reading of Genesis. Why the proto-constructivistic? Because this reading of the message of Adam's creation leads to discovering the hidden recursiveness, I have mentioned it, of the art of creation. Humans have the ability to create human-like beings in a similar way as their creators create the first humans from inorganic matter and with soul received from human beings in a certain mysterious way. Okay, let's go to the modern times. In the modern times we will start with mentioning two recognized people from Switzerland, Pierre and his son Henri-Louis Jacquard-Ross. These two men created a couple of different pupils, artificial of course. For instance, this Drossman, this picture, and for instance, the musician lady in this picture. It was in a certain sense some kind of robots, because they have the possibility to do very impressively some things which usually are done by human beings. For instance, playing on piano or drawing pictures. I have a more detailed photo from this Drossman. Here is a boy. You can recognize here some mechanical things, and this is a picture drawn by this machine. It's a good picture of the dog. Well, I'm not able to draw a similar one. Another man who was very famous in his time and maybe in our time is also Johann Wolfgang Kempelen, who is especially important for me also for the reason that he lives all his life in the city now called Bratislava, and before the renaming of the city to Bratislava it was Pressburg. So, Johann Wolfgang Kempelen lived all his life in Pressburg. It was a constructor and very intelligent man of his time, and he constructed something which is called chess-playing Turk, because it is a machine and it is in the form of the Turk sitting behind a chessboard. He constructed it in Bratislava, or in Pressburg if you like, in this way, in 1770. And another picture of this man here. Here you can recognize the cut through all the machinery, and you have a possibility to see inside. But nobody has the possibility to see inside this machine. So it is also a hypothesis which is depicted here, that inside is sitting a small man, but very clever in the chess. Nobody knows it is true or not. If it is not true, in this case, it is absolutely unimaginable for us how the Turk was constructed. Because in the level of mechanics, it is more or less impossible for us now. But maybe Kelemen knows something which we are not knowing now in our today's mechanics. Don't know. So, because this is the reason why many of specialists prefer this small trick inside. But also in the case, if this trick was used in constructing the Kelemen machine, it is very, very, very complicated machine in such a way that this small chess player here not only play chess, but also organize in certain way the moving of the Turk's hand and pushing the chess figures. So it is not a simple case, nor for today's machines. So it is a problematic thing with the Kelemen's. Okay, and here is one of the replica of this machine, but the replica is not functioning. The replica is also a sculpture, but you can see the size of all the things. And the replica is now, or no, I don't know, was a few years in Bratislava's Café Roland. It's a one cafe in Bratislava, and this replica was in this cafe. Okay. Of course, there exists also a book about this Turk. Here you can recognize the picture. I have started with it. And the book is written down by Thomas Standage and published by Berkeley's book in 2002. Okay. So now let's go to the 20th century. The 20th century started sometime in the 18th century, 1940-80, and I pushed here 3 copies of the Communist Manifesto, because all the past century was very impressed by this document. This is the handwriting of Karl Marx, of the part of the manuscript of the Kommunistischen Partei Manifesto. Here is the first print of the manifesto, published in London, and this is one of the next prints. Very, very many prints. It is an English translation of manifesto by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. It was a political start of the 20th century in certain sense. There are also scientific starting points of the 20th century. It is also a starting point from the 19th century. It is a few strokes from Charles Darwin famous book, The Origin of Species. And I think that the most important strokes are here. Species had not been independently created, but had descendants like varieties from other species. So it was a very influential book for the 20th century, giving some emphasizing the development of the organic matters in the world. Okay, and another more or less scientific contribution. The contribution was in psychology by Sigmund Freud. And I used here one picture from Freud's, one of Freud's manuscripts, the so-called sexual schema, where Freud divide the origin of human or also animal sexuality in four quadrants, and make an effort to explain how, thanks to some outer signals, the sexual behavior behaves like it behaves, and what happens inside the human mind, the human organism, according to these influences from outside. Now let's go to the art. Again, and now we are in the 20th century, and we have in the 20th and beginning of the 20th century the different variations of the manifestos of futurism, for instance. And Marinetti was one who formulated this, one of these manifesto, and you can read a part of this manifesto, written down by Marinetti. And here is a Victory of Samothrace, the sculpture, mention it here, it's here. It is now in Paris. So it was the ambitions of creative artists in the beginning of the 20th century, and the opinion of that time artist concerning the value of his work in comparison with other works of their predecessors. So I don't know whether the things are better as Victory of Samothrace today or not, but it was the impression of the Marinetti, at least. Okay, there are other pictures in 1912 by Robert Delaunay and by Marcel Duchamp, and you can admire the use of geometric things. In this case too, it is part of a bigger picture, and this is something which where Duchamp tried to depict the movement in a certain way. Here are the geometric forms, and here is a movement, the goal of the artist. Further artist is Salvador Dali. Maybe you all know this picture of Dali, which is a human face of these actors, and also a kind of room. Robots as golems of this modern age, of the age of 20th century. Robots are understood usually as an artificially created, unusual, at least in science fiction, a humanoid biomechanically or electromechanically based system behaving autonomously. And in certain extent like a man. So an autonomously behaving car, who knows whether or not it will be a robot, but if it will look like human beings, exactly it will be a robot. The desire behind the effort to construct robots is again the desire to have human-like machines for helping human beings in different difficult situations. Very similar reason for existence as in the case of golems. And also some fear coming from realizing different dangers connected with autonomous machines is also present in our today contemplations concerning robots. So, and now back to Prague, in a certain sense, back to robots in the literature. These two men are Karel and Jozef Čapek, and they are the initiators of the new word robot. It is another not very usual picture of the two brothers, Karel and Jozef. And this picture is, from my point of view, very important because the picture was produced in the summer of 1920. In summer of 1920, Karel and Jozef spent his holidays with their parents, and his father was a doctor, a medical doctor, in Trenčianske Teplice. Trenčianske Teplice is a spa in Slovakia. So these two brothers was in the spa in Slovakia. Not only these two brothers, but also he had also a sister, Helena, and she was also with him. And she wrote down a very nice book about this, commenting the activities of brothers. So, if it is in Ružomberok, which is not far from Trenčianske Teplice, and if the picture was made in summer, during the summer, then it is very, very probable that the Čapeks goes to Ružomberok as for a touristical trip from Trenčianske Teplice, which is not very, very far. So the picture is maybe from the same time when the RUR was written down in Trenčianske Teplice. We know that the play was written down in Trenčianske Teplice during this holiday. And now we have also a picture of the two brothers who speak about the play, and maybe Jozef proposed to Karel to call the subjects appearing in the play as robots. Karel Čapek used in the first writing another word, not the word robot, but the word labors, labore, from Latin-based word labor, in plural labors, for robots. And he was not very satisfied with that, and goes to Jozef and asks him, it is very, very artificially looking like something robots it is, how to call these creations. And Jozef proposed the word robots. So it is a mystery behind the word robot, and this is the Čapeks from the days when the robot was proposed and the RUR was written down. It was not the first literal work of Karel and Jozef Čapek. Jozef Čapek, Adam the creator from Karel Čapek and Jozef Čapek, and so on. This is the first printing of the Rossum Universal Robots, printed, issued by Aventinum in Prague in 1920, you see. A collective drama with a comedy on 3 acts. The book, the cover of the book was designed again by Jozef Čapek. RUR means Rossum's Universal Robots, and now let's go to this story. Now, I have mentioned Trenčianske Teplice as a place where maybe the word robot was first used and written down, and I visited once these places, and I have some postcards also from these places. This is an old postcard from the former place, which is now called Trenčianske Teplice, Bad, Trenchin, Teplice, Fürde. It is in German and it is in Hungarian, which was two languages used in Trenčianske Teplice. And this is the picture from the end of the before of the 19th century. So you can see how the situation in Trenčianske Teplice looks in that time. This is from 80s of 20th century. It is made by myself, this photo. And this is a building, which building is now staying on the place where the building where the Čapek's family lives in Trenčianske Teplice, his mother and father. And from memoirs of Helena Čapková, I mentioned it, it is clear that Karel Čapek lived not with the parents, but in the opposite building. So I have a hypothesis that this building is opposite building, maybe, where Karel Čapek lived and wrote the story. Okay, the RUR was written down, and at the beginning of 1921, there are the two first nights of the play. And again, something which complicates the situation, because the real first night, the real premiere of RUR was not in Prague, as it is usually repeated, but in Hradec Králové. In Hradec Králové was a small theater company of non-professionals, and here in January 2nd was the first night of the play, directed by Bedřich Stein. Bedřich Stein played some roles in the railway as professionally, but he was also an amateur director, and this is a build of the performance in Hradec Králové. This is a theater built for RUR in the National Theatre in Prague. Again, you can see like some names are important. The director was Vojta Novák. Výprava, the creation of the scene was Bedřich Feuerstein, and costumes was invented by Jozef Čapek. Here is the costume invented by Jozef Čapek for the robots in the play, and here is a National Theatre, you well know. Vojta Novák was the director, and the costume designer was by Karel Čapek. This is the photo, the original photo from the first night of the play. So very nice slogans here. Those Czech can admire it. That's me. Everybody was his own robots, Rassum robots for everybody, and so on. The designer of the scene was Bedřich Feuerstein. Okay, what is Karel Čapek's opinion concerning the robots? Or part of the play RUR starts with some passages from the so-called from the diary of the old Rossum. Old Rossum is a person not appearing in the RUR. In RUR appears only his memoirs, from where somebody read and cite these memoirs to somebody else. And is this memoirs is this part also. And the part inform us about that nature found only one process by which to organize living matter, and the old Rasum found another one, possibility. Okay, it is not a very important picture. It is a more important picture. It is the first night of the RUR in New York, in Garrick Theatre, Guild Theatre, and Garrick Theatre was played in the Guild Theatre in New York City. This is a costume of the robots. This is New York, and the director was Nigel Muller. Translated from Czech was a play by Nigel Playfair, and first night was in October 22. So this is how the robots looks like in the New York first night. Very nice part from the comments of the Evening Post commentator, who writes like Wells of an early day, the dramatist feels his imagination and so forth. The next first night was then in London in 1923, in Vienna in 1923, in Paris in 1924, and in Tokyo in 1924 again. So you see that the play goes around all the world in a very short time, and in very good places. There's something from the first night in London, April 24, 1923. It was followed by a discussion. The first night was followed by the discussion and for instance, Chesterton and Shaw appeared in this discussion, among others. It is two pictures which are not very well informed about the destiny of these pictures, but there are some information. I have some information that this was the pictures from the Paris first night of RUR, where such kind of robots appeared in the scene. This worker here is in fact also a robot. He constructs another robot, but this robot is something not unfinished up to now, and this is a finishing one, and it is very, very, very similar to the human being. Okay, in Lidové noviny, which is one newspaper, changes, and in Christmas time, in December 24 of 1935, Karel Čapek wrote the following strokes in the Lidové noviny. Wrote some essays on robots, and there are some pictures by Jozef Čapek, how he imagined it for himself. The robots, it's very nice. This is in the form of a key. This is the form of a very nice lady, but the lady is nice. The mechanism is here, and if you remember the picture from my slides, from the first, my slides of Jacques Droz drawing pupil, then you can realize that the similar mechanical part was also in the head of the small pupil who draws a dog. Here is a picture. Here is a part, and here is a similar. Of course, then the notion of robots receive the great popularity, and for instance in Friesland, very nice and very long movie from 26 in Metropolis appeared one robotic figure. He's from Maria, and the picture is interesting because very nice electronic things are appearing in 26 in the movie. It is not very usual. Okay, let's go to the age of the postmodern. Robots from labs. We all know now here that robots are also appearing in our laboratories, and that is an electromechanical things, silicon-based processors, advanced computer programming, some experimentation with biochemically founded things. The first robot in this sense from laboratory comes from Westinghouse in 1927. The robot is here, and he was used as a servant. He gives some young ladies here something for drinking, soda or something like that. This is nothing interesting. This Turing is a very interesting person, but I will not deal with him now in more details. This Turing test. Turing test is about the comparing of the capabilities of robots and capabilities of the human beings. Comparing these capabilities and posing the question whether or not it is identifiable who, in what cases decided the man and in what cases decided the robot. And other important names from my field, computer science. It is a picture of John von Neumann, a very important and influential person of the past century, physicist and mathematicians also, inventor of the self-reproducing automata. He was studied in this building here, which is building in Budapest. He's John von Neumann for us, but his official name in Hungary was another one. This phone he received in the United States, if I remember well. He was the son of a man working in financial business in this time. His father was a financial businessman, and it is a very important school. These persons here, Edward Teller, the inventor of the first neutron bomb, George Poy, a very famous mathematician, Paul Erdős, very famous mathematician, Lindenmayer, famous men who connect biology and computational things. All of these men and many others have finished this school in Budapest. This is a nice picture. These three very important people: Julian Bigelow, Hermann Goldstein, and J. Robert Oppenheimer, and John von Neumann. Oppenheimer was the head of the project of atom bombs in the United States, and Neumann was involved in this working group. This is John von Neumann with the computer, the architecture of which he proposed. So it was the first Joniac computer, based on ENIAC computer, which is existing, but not. It was some difficulties with the memory of this computer and memories. John von Neumann is also one of the fathers of the theory of games. The theory of games was written down by himself and by Oskar Morgenstern. It was Morgenstern in the picture. It is one of the print of the book. This is a self-reproducing automata, schematically, of John von Neumann. This is a book appearing posthumously after the death of John von Neumann. It is the last, of course, Neumann's book. It's a very interesting title, The Computer and Braille. This mentioned Alistair Lindenmayer, who studied very effectively the mechanism of growing these plant-like things. This is Christopher Langton, who constructed the first self-reproducing automata. You see, here is the first stage, and after several stages, we have two of this. It's reproduced. Isaac Asimov, a writer who used as a first the term robotics as a term for designing the activity leading to robots. This is a Czech translation of his book, I, Robot. The original was appeared in 1942. More precisely, this is a collection of short stories by Asimov. One short story, the second one is a runaround, and this runaround was published first in 1942. It's a very nice picture also, and I like it very much, because I remember from my childhood the short stories going in the Czechoslovak TV and dealing with different stories on robots. This robot is the robot Emil, and maybe, I don't know, but maybe this was the first TV serial where robots appeared on the board. This robot Emil. This is the 2 days laboratory robots. As the picture is from our university, in Silesian University. There are these small robots behaving and operating. This is robots from more serious laboratories, from MIT Artificial Intelligence Laboratory in this time. This one is important because it is emotional robots. This artificial head is required to receive some emotional this face must express some emotions of the robot, his face. This is another robot from this laboratory. Okay, robots' bodies in the pop culture. So in lab, the robot looks like that one. In the pop culture, the robot looks like this one. This is from MIT, and this is from Terminator 3. Again, if you are mentioning emotions, this is an emotional robot from laboratory. This is two emotional robots from the movie AI. David, small boy, and robotic gigolo here. So, of course, then we may speak about many other things. It is the presence of computers, for instance, in art. It is one artist from Slovakia, and this is his artwork produced by computer. This is another artwork produced by computer. If you know the bull from Altamira, here is started somewhere this picture of the bull of Altamira, and he is a sign of the infinity in the opposite end. The creator was Daniel Fischer. This is Harold Cohen, and his computer programmed for creation of piece of graphics. This is one graphic produced by this machinery. Here, this is another one here in the wall. It's very important and interesting man and his approach to create real artistic creations using machines. This is another one, artistic creation of these machines. This is Rodney Brooks, specialist from robotics, and in the hands you have two baby dolls, but these dolls are in certain way robots. These admiring the babies are for children, for little girls to play, but in a certain sense they work as robots. And Rodney Brooks was the inventor of this robot for a firm of producing things for child. This is another very important robotist from abroad, from Britain, Kevin Warwick in Prague. This is his book, translated into Czech. And this is his other book, The Body as a side of psyche or a social, but rather as a structure to be monitored and modified. The body not as a subject, but as an object, not an object of desire, but as an object for designing. So I think that this is the end of all of my talk. Thank you very, very much for your patient participation and hearing me. And I don't know what further. Thank you.